welcome to another episode of Are We Clear Yet? We're seeking clarity through dialogue is how we move. I'm joined by my brothers Al, Dub, and Dre, but I'm the only one that's met Deborah Cox. Dre, how you feeling today, brother? How you feeling?
I feel good, man. Good to be back with my boys on the pod. I
Yes,
feel
sir.
good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dub, how we doing?
I'm over my withdrawal from not being able to watch my Knicks play basketball anymore this season.
Oh boy,
We
sorry
are
about that, man.
We are definitely excited for what's to come next season for my Knicks. Go New York, go New York, go.
Excited for Randall, huh? That's too bad.
Nah.
Al, how we feeling, man?
Yo, I'm feeling like Caitlin Clark, man. Caitlin Clark. Yo, my world is my oyster, and I'm feeling blessed, brother. Blessed. Wide open.
Indeed. If it hasn't been clear yet, I met Deborah Cox, and I just want to make sure that was very clear on the recording. And she likes me, and I'm her friend. So we got a couple videos, at least a couple videos that we're gonna react to today. Let's not waste any time and get to the first one, and we'll talk on the other side.
Let's go.
There's three things that every man wants. And if you do these three things, you can procure any man that you want. And this isn't my information that I just came up with. This is actually research-based. And the first thing is being useful. How can you be useful to the person in your life? Why is that important? Because when you are a useful asset, then there is no way that he's ever going to want to get rid of you. The second thing is you have to blow his mind in the bedroom. What does that mean? That means you take the wildest, nastiest thing that you've ever done, figure out the wildest, nastiest thing that he's ever done, and exceed that. Otherwise, he can just get it from somewhere else. Now, the third thing, and this thing is the most important thing. It doesn't matter if you do the first two things. If you don't do this last thing, then you won't be able to keep your man, and that is respect. Always respect your man. Now, if you have any confusion as to what respect is, say to yourself, would I say this to the person who is writing my checks? Would I say this to my boss? And if you wouldn't, don't say it to your man.
And there you have it. First and foremost, other than the fact that I met Deborah Cox, whoever created this television show is a genius, because this thing has been like catching fire like crazy. Every clip I've ever seen, and I just go straight to the comments, and I just look at the body language and the comments by the contestants. Pure comedy. This one in particular, though, this guy's been pissing people off. He's pissing people off on the show, and I think he's just pissing people off generally. He's giving us his research-based 3 reasons, or 3 ways, or 3 means for attracting, keeping the man, etc. I mean, what do we think about these 3 things here? What do we think? Dre.
Dub.
No, I want to hear from Dre first.
You want to hear from me first?
I want to hear from you first. What was the first thing you said when you heard this guy lay out his argument here for 3 things? What'd you think?
I don't think it matters. How can I say this? Those are important 3 things, but if a man want to leave, he want to leave. If a man want to do what he want to do, he gonna do what he want to do. I don't think a man, you could respect him. You could, I mean, not even man or woman. You could respect them. You could do all those 3 things he said, but we still gonna do what we want to do.
And I want to say it was usefulness. The sex thing was the third. What was the middle one?
The sexting was the middle one.
The sexting was the middle one. The last thing was respect.
Was respect. Okay, so usefulness, the sex, and the respect. And I really do agree with what you said. I mean, that's kind of like the bottom line conclusion. I think those elements are important. I think they're
very important, but
I think they're factors. But I think I think because he's so matter of fact about it, he's just laying it out as something that's so matter of fact. It makes it seem like
it's not that easy.
Yeah,
it's not that easy. It is not that easy.
And you know, there is merit there on really both sides for men or women to take it. Usefulness, you know, because that's I guess a very practical thing. The sex thing, because men were, you know, We love sex. I mean, we do. That drives us. That motivates us. That causes us to work harder and to strive for things. It does all kinds of stuff. It's what it is. And the respect thing, honestly, I thought the respect thing was probably the more pivotal thing. Especially, I just read a book called Love and Respect, which laid it out in a very comprehensive way, but also a very practical way about what are things that kind of energize a man and trigger a man to do or not do certain things within a relationship. And that thing, the argument that he was making was the respect thing. Man receives respect. He becomes motivated and activated to do certain things, including loving his wife. And it's kind of like a circular thing. And so I do like the third one, and he throws in as a means of examples of, would you say it to your boss? Would you say it to your superior? Now, I already know that's going to bother a lot of people based off how he framed it, but woven into that, I think there is something very poignant to point out. I think that works. And that, well, ideally, the person whom you've committed yourself with relationally shouldn't be spoken to at a level beneath someone that is compensating you for your time. So I do think there is something to that. I won't go any further. Dub, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I just recently told my cousins in my family chat that I would love to go on that show. I would love
man, that would be great.
Yeah. And you know, I wouldn't be disrespectful. But it's interesting because for the women that popped the balloon on me, I think it's good to kind of find out or learn, you know, why you weren't someone's cup of tea, because that could help you grow in some areas. You understand what I'm saying? So
yeah.
To me, it would only hurt guys who feel like 100% like they're supposed to attract 100% of women that's out there, which is not realistic.
The super insecure ones, for sure.
But Dub, they pop that balloon soon dudes walk in the room.
Oh yeah.
So how that's gonna help you decide if you their cup of tea? Now they pop that balloon soon as dudes walk in the room.
Well,
I saw one the other day. Everybody popped the balloon. Dude barely walked in the door.
Yeah. So that right there tells me that there's something about your appearance that you need to level up. If you can. You know, some things we can't help. Like if the guy's too short, he can't help.
What if it's the face? What you gonna do? Get surgery? It's not that serious.
Listen, there's a lot of beautiful women walking around with ugly dudes. So guess what? If you can't upgrade your face, you have to upgrade either your personality, you got to be funny, or you have to upgrade your bank account. Because if you got money and if you're funny,
but my thing is, you just walk in the room. But that guy do it, and they pop the balloons. It can only be one thing at that point.
Yeah,
two things: your body or your face.
Right, but what I'm saying is, after that guy leaves the show, he's gonna have to upgrade again, either his personality or his money or something, because obviously he's, you know. But anyways, yeah, I mean that can hurt somebody, man, just walking in and then just having a balloon pop before he even opens his mouth. But that guy, man, has been on several times. Every time I see one of those clips, this dude is talking. And I'm not gonna say everything he's saying is not correct, but you know, I can see why people are kind of tired of him. Let me say this: the first one, usefulness. I don't think anybody, man or woman, is going to marry somebody who's not useful. So for me, that first one kind of goes without saying.
That's automatic.
Yeah.
That's automatic.
I think above everything else, even the sex, I think respect is bigger than the sex. The sex is huge, but I think respect to a man is the biggest thing. And I'm gonna pass on to Al. This is what I want to say about respect. Respect is going to look different to every person, to every man. You know, I mean, there are some things that are across the board, but respect is going to look different. So you have to learn what your man finds disrespectful. And if that thing is something that you feel is not a big deal, you might be running into a compatibility issue because you on your end think it's not a big deal, but he finds it disrespectful. So now you have to make a decision as a woman. Am I going to continue to do this thing and continue to do what he finds disrespectful, or am I going to find a partner who doesn't find this particular thing disrespectful? There's a decision.
You're talking good today. You're talking real good.
So respect is going to look different depending on, but that is number one. Respect is number one.
You can't let us go on like this. Jump in.
I mean, my problem is, man, we always talked about the mutuality of relationships, you know what I mean? Where two people are single-minded in a sense, you know, after the same goals, doing the same things. I think my problem with a lot of these shows, or a lot of these people, a lot of these women who think they're in real life but really living a facade life, is they're so caught up in the levels of social media dictating, you know, how they live, how they think, what they do,
the criteria and such.
The criteria, yeah. Not a lot of people are looking for the realness in a person. So Drake said, yeah, the man walked in the room, all the balloons are popping, right, or whatever. So you haven't even given me a chance. Like, for all you know, that could be the only slice that's messed up in the pizza, right? So you've got 7 other slices potentially that will fill you, but you just popped a balloon because you didn't like something about my appearance. I could stimulate you intellectually. I could be the best person in bed you've ever seen. You know, I could make the most money. I could drive the best cars, have the best houses. But we're so superficial that the first thing we did was look at you and said, you don't qualify. So we've become somewhat dismissive in our approach to who we want, which to whatever degree, if you think about it, if I'm going after you in a sense of a Ken and Barbie mentality, when these things start to fade later in life, am I leaving you because those things are no longer attractive to me? Whereas if I get to know you and I find things that are actually attractive to me, those things can be cultivated, built, maintained, and maybe those other things become more important than the superficiality of how I looked when I walked in that room.
Yeah, no, you're touching on something that we have touched on before, and the superficial nature. One thing I do want to say is this show is, I like it because it's very confrontational. I like confrontational styles of shows that like Jason kind of alluded to. All right, if you popped it, I like to see the exchanges, which wasn't in this clip. This guy kind of just went on his own kind of monologue kind of thing, which not everyone does, but he definitely did it. Probably why a lot of people hate him. But I like the exchange. The exchange portion wasn't in this clip. It did happen, but not in this clip. But the exchange is really interesting. And I also believe that just going back to what you were saying, it's very, very interesting because I remember one of the contestants, they were dismissing guys just by the sound of his voice. They just heard him talk, and then we're like, all right, we've concluded that it's not for me. But before hearing anything else,
balloons pop pretty early as they walk in. I saw one. I think it was another. Like you said, the show is popular. Happens. It's always men though. The show is popular. Most I see is men walking in, and women just pop, 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 pop. One guy, a girl asked him about his bank account. How much money he has in his bank account or something. He said, I'm not going to answer that question. I don't give out that type of information. She popped the balloon. And he said to her, so you popped the balloon because I didn't tell you how much I have in my bank account. And she said, yeah, because, you know, I asked you a question and you didn't respond. So he just laughed and he brushed it off, and, you know, but that was the last girl. That's the only reason she popped it, because he didn't tell her how much money he got in his bank account. But what I was going to say about is, we both have to be useful to each other.
Yep.
And we both have to respect each other. So to be honest with you, that's the 2 most important things. That sex thing, that's kind of the only thing that can be taught, because we both have to learn each other in the bedroom of what we like. So that's the only thing that can be taught to each other, because we gonna like different things in the bedroom. But that
Right.
usefulness and that respect, if we don't have that for each other, we can't really teach that, because that's just something we grew up with. We're gonna respect the woman and you're gonna respect the man, however it is. But that sex, it's not really that important, because we could teach each other that. It's not something that's that important at that time. But the usefulness and the respect, that's the most important thing. The other third thing could just, that's not that important.
But do you
And
feel like it's generational, man? Like you said, we grew up learning to respect women, to respect each other. Do you think it's generational? Because I don't know so much that today that's a primary focus. I think eventually it may fall in play.
Yeah.
But you notice most of the questions come up today are, what's in your bank account? What kind of car do you drive? How big is your house? Like, what kind of job do you have? Like, no one's
Basically, what's your
asking-
status?
Yeah, it's basically status questions. Like, no one's asking, what are your morals? What do you know? How do you treat your mother? Like, what are your thoughts on life? Like, no one's asking those type of questions really anymore. So I'm wondering, at the end of the day, if we're building this thing on just these superficiality of tangible goods, what do we really have in terms of a relationship at the end of the day?
not much.
Not much.
It's basic. It's basically a foundation of straw, and you're building the house with more straw. The walls are straw, the roof is straw, the doors are straw, and it's weak, and it's gonna fall over.
Let's give the example. Let's give the example of Jason. One of Jason's favorite words. Where I keep telling him we'll grow up, because we shouldn't be using that word. Simp. What's simp? Like, what? About the dumbest word I ever heard. But simp. So give an example. Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson get killed. Every time he shows a woman love, how much he love her, what he do for her, he gets killed in the comments. He's get killed by, oh, he's a simp, he's that, he's this and that. The man that grew up know how to take care of his woman. So I don't see the problem. How is he a simp because he's taking care of his woman? Jason, I need you to answer that question.
Oh, I can answer that 100%.
Oh, I need you to answer. That's your favorite word.
Well, it's not my favorite word.
You're a sympologist, so I need you to answer that question.
Snip and duck are the words that we use around here. But here's the problem, right? I think the examples and the definitions have been muddled. And so you have people just using that word like every other buzzword that ever comes out on social media. You have people who it starts off being used in good faith, and then people turn around and start using the word in bad faith. Like, there are men out there who think that just being a stepfather is being a simp, and it's not. And so what's happening is the definition of what a simp is and the examples of what a simp is being muddled by the haters, and it's taken away from because being a simp is a real thing. But I don't know if I would classify Russell as a simp. I think the man is, I think they just think, that he's corny. Let me tell you what the biggest. I'm gonna circle back to this, but
what
I think
makes him corny?
You have to. The people who find him corny, you have to ask them. I mean, I don't think the man is corny. I just think that I think he's washed. He played for my Broncos.
We're not talking about football right now. He might be a little washed. But we're not talking about.
let me stay on subject. And honestly, when it comes to Russell, I think it's more of he's just a little bit. There's the if we're talking about simp in the relationship thing. I think he's a little bit disingenuous as a football player addressing the media. I think he does a lot of player talk and doesn't really show a lot of personality and charisma. But that's one area. We're not talking about that. When it comes to his admiration of his wife, which, wow, that's a crazy idea. His admiration for his wife and some of the things that he says, I think he could be looked at as, because he lacks, to me, he does lack charisma. To me, he doesn't come across as a charismatic dude. But guess what? It's one of those things that, like, it doesn't matter because your wife likes you. So if your wife likes you and your wife shows love to you and you make her smile and you make her laugh and she's just glowing every time she's on camera, that should be the only thing that matters. But because he is kind of oh shucks, man, he's got a little bit of it in him. He kind of comes off that way. And then when you see how amazing his wife is, it's like man, you're kind of like, and you got Sierra on there, you're kind of a simp. But like Jay said, it's a misapplication of the term. It does
100%.
not belong to him, really, because there are all real simps out there. He's not really it.
I'm going to tell you what the issue is with him. What the problem is, he represents, right? He represents, let me tell you what the guys have an issue with. He represents the leftover. I mean, I don't know how else to put that. So he represents the guy that women are not generally attracted to until after they've had a couple of terrible relationships, a baby daddy or 2 or 3, baby daddy's getting locked up or whatever the case may be. Russell Wilson is the fallback after they've gone through that trauma with all the other quote unquote bad boys. And so the guys probably feel he's a simp because normally when those women come back around to you, you're supposed to tell them to, go kick rocks, but nobody's going to tell Sierra to kick rocks. But bringing it back though, with the balloon thing, what I was going to say was, women can be as superficial as we are. I told my cousins this too. Women can be superficial like us, and I mean, listen, they have a right to. I think there's this notion out there that women can't be physically attracted or not supposed to be physically attracted to their mates. Attraction matters. So you have to be attracted to the person you're with. So I don't blame them on one end. On the other end, though, you have to be careful because a lot of people's preferences and standards, they don't realize that they're decreasing the odds of finding a suitable mate. Like you said earlier, Dre, you said that those 3 things he mentioned, a man will still, if he wants to leave, he will still leave. Well, nothing is 100%, bro. These are things that will increase the likelihood that your man will stay. Respecting him, being a freak in the sheets and being useful.
Man or woman.
Or man or woman will increase the chances that they stay. And so that's what we're looking at.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think my only problem, man, real quick, is from an attraction standpoint, and I get it. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you're looking for a particular type, you want a particular thing. I think though, when those things become, I want to say primary, it ultimately could be a problem because, like I said, like as you get older, you're either going to be switching partners or you're going to figure out how to deal with the fact that, these breasts that were up are now drooping. The butt that you thought was firm, the silicone's falling out. It could be a bunch of things going on that like at the end of the day, as you get older, these things are just affecting you. So if it's less than, and I remember Dean saying something to the effect that he's like a woman who challenged his thought, who was able to have a conversation with him, who's able to. So if I eliminate you just by what I see when you come in the room, I could essentially get with a serial killer because he's cute, or somebody's going to beat me up, because he's cute, versus giving it a chance and seeing where it can go. But I get it. We live in a world that is driven. It's very temporal. It's very just get this quick. So I 100% get it. But I think what I see from a lot of this stuff and these shows is that we're portraying a body type or you have to have a lot of money or whatever. And to me, I've seen where it was a sitcom. I don't know if y'all remember. He was a garbage man and she was a nurse. I don't know if you remember that. I can't remember the name of the show. But essentially, a rich guy came into the picture one episode, and she told the rich guy, "You might have all the money, but my man loves me. He takes care of me, and he comes home to me every night." And she chose the garbage man over the billionaire. And I thought that was like indicative of maybe more the exception than the reality. But I think those people stay happy for a longer time than those who seek the things that are not foundationally driven. If that makes sense.
Was it Rock? The name of the show?
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Classic.
Yeah.
On Fox, I believe.
Old people.
No, I love
I do remember it though.
No, I love that, because at the heart of what you said, I believe, is foundationally having a value set, having morals, having something that's firm as your foundation, and building upon that. And these shows and these platforms and these circumstances are very unique, because it is, in a way, and I'm not trying to overly conclude that any of these men or women are superficial, or they don't have together and they need to retool. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it does, to some degree, kind of expose what you're looking at foundationally. And foundationally, if you hear someone say something that, this is actually rooted in sound and wise logic, and you're popping a balloon because you're hearing somebody say something that's challenging to you in a healthy way, that should be an alarm to yourself that, even though I did this in this moment, maybe I need to re-examine why I actually did that. Because, for example, let's just go to what I think is probably the most important thing I think we've all kind of said here, the respect piece. You do know that the mere idea or the mere mention of a man saying, I desire to be respected, that is going to set off some people in a crazy way, because what they hear is some type of weird translation in their brain is, I'm going to dominate you. I'm trying to rule over you. I want you to be submissive to me in some kind of weird, unhealthy way. When that's
African?
not what's but that's not what's going on at all. At all. That's not what's happening at all. It's a genuine desire to hold a certain place in the relationship where, and both genders obviously desire this. But going back to what I was talking about in the book, essentially, is that there's a certain mechanism, traditionally, commonly, in a man's mind, in a man's essence, that desires to be respected. And going back to the learning piece, learning your significant other. So yes, there's going to be some general things that are probably best practices, but then there's also, I care about what drives and motivates and what encourages and what strengthens the man that I'm with. So I'm going to learn the things that Dub said, that he feels disrespected by, the things that respect him, and in turn will grow and enhance and kind of strengthen the relationship in that way. The respect thing, honest to God, it's going to carry over into the intimacy, and it's going to carry over when it comes to the utility. I think that's more about, and again, he didn't really, he did kind of expound on the utility piece, but I think that's more so I look at that as being engaged into the relationship. Don't just be there just to be there. Like, if I'm with you, if we're together, I'm focusing how can we make this better? How can we make this thing go the distance and not just be a warm body in the room? I want to be active. I want to be constantly considering you. I want to think about, all right, what's the next move? So I'd like to think, at least that's where I'm coming from, the utility piece. I probably wouldn't call it utility or usefulness. I'd probably frame that a different way. But I think the respect thing, I think if you really respect the person that you're with, you're going to find ways to be more and more engaged and be more and more useful in the confines of the relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Can I address one thing you said, Gene?
Yes. Yes.
So the reason why, if a man says, I want to be respected, it will set some people off. It's not our fault. It's basically, you're talking about centuries of patriarchy. So because of patriarchy, right, where just men have always, for lack of a better term, won. Okay, men have always dominated and won over women. Women didn't get the right to vote until 1920, right? And so because of patriarchy, it's taboo to talk about what men want. because it's almost like men already have everything. So if a man wants to be respected, if a man wants this, if a man expects this, it's almost like taboo. It's almost like men are not human. And so we cannot desire things in our relationship or in our marriages because it's not about us. And again, that's why the happy wife, happy life is much more popular than happy spouse, happy house, because it's almost like men don't deserve anything that any subject that requires or that deals with men talking about their needs, their preferences, their standards is going to be shot down, or some people are going to have an issue with it because they just feel like, I don't know. I think it's a byproduct of just patriarchy, and they just feel like we always are winning, and so we don't deserve anything. That's just my opinion.
But
Well,
I think it's highlighted more though, because again, everybody feels like a sense of entitlement. Everybody feels like they should get, like everybody wins, like participation trophies, and nobody's thinking about how do I make you better? How do you make me better? How do we do that? Like even talking about your own personal situations. When you think about it, a lot of times the lulls in your relationships came from lack of maybe feeling like the person you were with didn't respect you, didn't support you, didn't value you, didn't honor you. And these aren't slavery mentality type situations. I'm just saying this is it's what a human being would want, to feel honored, feel valued, feel like I'm important to you enough that what's important to me is now important to you. And I don't think there's enough of that. It comes across like we can't even have a conversation about these things. But I feel like relationally, man, I've seen a lot of relationships in today's society that just go left quick for simple things, and these are more tangible or measurable items like bank accounts, car you drive, the house you're in, or whatever the case might be. And it's never about how do I take care of you? How do I take care of the children? How do I make sure we have a home, a roof over our heads? How do I ensure that, I'm working to make sure we can live properly and our future is secure? None of that matters anymore, it seems. It seems it's more, what can you do for me right now?
Go ahead, Dre.
What I was gonna say when it comes to the one you guys said, I desire to be respected or whatever. Do we really have to ask that question? Do we really have to demand that?
Unfortunately,
as you meet this woman or you meet this man, you're dating, you're gonna see all this. You're gonna be, as you're dating, as you're going on dates and spending more time with each other, you're gonna see if this woman is for you. If this woman gonna respect you, or you gonna respect, you're gonna see all this as you're dating. If you get to marriage before you realize all this, both of you guys messed up at that point. Because if you're dating, you're not looking for these things as you're dating. You already messed up at that point.
But can I say this though? So yeah, I mean, when you're dating, I think you're at the most vulnerable point of the relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a chance you do overlook a couple items here and there, and you do say, "All right, you know what? I can probably live with that a little bit, and maybe later on we could figure it out." I just think it's not, if you're 100% honest with even looking at my personal, my last situation, you know what I mean? I'm like, I overlooked, I think, in my head, in retrospect, a lot of things, because from a superficial standpoint, yeah, she was cute. She checked the boxes, and maybe I just didn't see the fact that she was not the best person for me for whatever reason, whether it's, she was wanting me to do more than she was willing to do. And we're not being too specific to out anybody on social media. I'm saying, I think when you're dating, sometimes because of certain situations, you tend to look past a lot of things, and I don't know. I think it's natural to do that.
Yeah, it happens, and I think what you're kind of alluding to is sometimes there are just elements in a relationship that kind of cloud the vision of the whole, and so you're obviously you're in there with your best intentions and you're wanting it to work, and there might be something that's causing you to not see things truly as they are. And so then you, little by little, you start compromising on this and compromising on that, not really truly realizing what's actually happening. But what do we have to do constantly? We constantly have to be as sober minded as we can,
right,
about the position that we're in, and that in the state of things, and really, really listening attentively to what's being told to us, and also being obviously attentive to what we're saying, what we're putting out there, because obviously as men, we don't want to be disrespectful. We actually, like I said, I believe we are really activated when we're actually receiving respect. And it comes in different ways. How one woman displays respect, and Dub kind of spoke about this very, very clearly. How one woman displays respect to her man is going to look different to the next relationship, because one guy he might just completely miss it. He might really miss what she's doing to honor and respect him. But to another guy, he's like, oh man, she really sees me. She really speaks to the greatness in me. She really encourages me. She really is making an effort when we're out in public, to kind of maneuver and not to communicate a certain way. And I see that, and I feel, and I acknowledge it. And those are really, they seem small, but they're actually like massive things in reality.
I'm gonna say, Dean, one of the things you just said, active listening, because communication is key, but active listening and comprehension is also very key. And so Dre, to your point, I mean, just a slight pushback. So yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, a guy shouldn't have to ask or demand respect. You know what I mean? It's not something that you have to ask. But the communication piece is going to be very important. You have to communicate. You have to say, okay, hey, these are the things that I find disrespectful. Now, you may not be able to encompass everything off the back. It may be one of the situations where it has to actually happen, before you can actually discuss it. But again, you have to learn your partner. It's going to look different. For instance, I mean, think about it. There's billions of men, right? Billions of men, billions of women. Everybody's threshold and what they find disrespectful is not going to be the same. So, a girl can be with one guy who doesn't like her twerking on the internet and doesn't like her bending over and twerking everywhere she goes. And he can find that disrespectful. Or you can have another guy who don't care nothing about that and just says, man, that's just women having fun. That's how they have fun. And none of that bothers me. So 2 different guys, 2 different personalities. One guy finds it disrespectful. The other one doesn't. So you have to, the communication is very important. And, in that same example, if you are a woman who loves to twerk, the guy who finds it disrespectful, that's not going to work. That's a compatibility issue. So you have to get with the guy who is fine with it and doesn't find it disrespectful at all, just as an example.
Yeah, but I feel like, man,
I don't think this has been said in very plain words yet. Y'all, let's not lie. Let us not lie.
Yeah.
And pretend like things are okay when they're not okay. Ladies, gentlemen, both, all.
Communicate.
Let us not lie. In our communication, let us not lie. Let us be true. Let us be truthful. Go ahead, Al.
No, but I think the problem I have with that, Jay, listen, man, I think there has to be some moral clauses in our relationships, right? So, like, I'm walking down the street, right? There's a dude walking with his girl. She is half naked. He wants to get mad because somebody looks at his girl, right? And it goes back to the twerking thing. Like if she felt okay walking out her house into the main populace, into the mall, looking like that, like she shouldn't have a problem with people looking at her, right? Now she'll say, oh, they're disrespecting me by looking at me. No, you came out of your house looking like a skank. Like I'm saying to myself, you're twerking and you think that's okay, right? And then when you're quote unquote violated by someone who looks at you, sees you, feels attracted to you, you want to have an issue with it. And then in the same token, the guy who is okay with that, as we would say, because he is, his level of respect is at that point. He wants to get mad at what? You know what I mean? So I think these things can get so cloudy and get so crossed up, because I think at some point, morality, somewhere in there, morality has to play a significant part. And Dre said it, communication is key. So before I even get to the point where I'm going to say I have to deal with you twerking on the internet, I think we should establish where we are before we get to that point. Because the minute I realize that that's what you're about, you may not be the girl for me. And I don't have to waste time trying to figure it out just because you're fine or because you have the biggest butt, the biggest breasts, or whatever the case might be. I'm not going to wait because you're cute or whatever. If that's what you do and I don't like it, I just need to move on, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to compromise my morality or my beliefs because that's what you like to do. I don't like it. So if we're going to fight about that, it doesn't make sense that we stay together. And I think we got to get to a point where, Dre said it, up front, have these conversations so we don't get to a point where I have to compromise my morals or my principles because I like you enough that I need to overlook some of these things. Because the minute we start overlooking some of these things is the minute that trouble is going to seep into the relationship. And once that happens, like, it's done. How do you recover from that?
Can't complain later. If you overlook red flags, you can't complain later.
Correct. And like I said, with my situation, man, and I call it that because to me, it's something that taught me a lot of lessons. I overlooked a lot of things, and again, for lack of a better word, I compromised my beliefs and my morals because she was cute, right? And I got to a point where now, afterwards, I had to say, man, did I miss that? Did I see that? Did I not see that? Whatever the case might be. And just keeping it real. And I know we can't necessarily, so much we can't say because we don't want to get into a slanderous type situation or get sued by somebody, right? But at the end of the day, I think that as a man or a woman, it's important that you're ultimately honest with yourself going into a relationship seeking situation. So when you get there, you're willing to do the things or take the steps necessary to unwrap or unravel the circumstances that could be potentially damaging in the future or potentially growth worthy in the future. So I just think it's important. Have a conversation, talk about it, figure it out.
Don't lie. Be honest. just don't lie. Don't nod your don't nod your head while you're hearing him or her say something crazy and be like, yeah, that's fine, that's cool. When inside you're torn up.
If you have a problem with it, say something. Talk, communicate,
be
speak
honest.
up.
Be honest. Honesty, man. Yeah. Be open
to everybody.
Hey, and I say this too, man. Hey, another level that we're not even thinking about is listen to your brothers. Because sometimes your brothers are right there telling you, bro, this is not the girl for you. This is not going to work. And in your mind, man, she fine, she cute. I don't care about what you're saying. And then when it blows up, like, you don't want to admit that you could have made a better decision because you had an influence in your ear. You know what I mean? So I think it's important to listen to not just your conscience, not just your inner voice, but you've got brothers on the outside. And I want to encourage the brothers out there who are listening to this pod and say, hey, man, if you see it, say it. I've had situations where my guys saw it, but they felt like they couldn't say it, and I think it's important that there's a combination of you.
Are they on this pod right now? Are they here right now? Those guys?
And the people around you. Because I'm not gonna lie, brother. Sometimes you're so deep in it, you're so what you perceive to be so in love, and whether it's a physical situation or whether it's a relational situation, whether it's a mental, emotional situation, like you're so caught up in it that you're not seeing everything from an objective standpoint. And I think it's important that your people around you are going to hold you accountable. And if they tell you and you still want to jump in the pool. You know what I mean? And that's on you at that point. But I think we just got to be accountable, man, to our feelings, accountable to how we treat others. And I think ultimately we start doing things like that. The treatment that comes back is only going to be at a high level. So you just got to be honest. Don't lie. They say don't lie. Don't lie.
I like it.
Blood clot lie. That's what they said.
Honesty, accountability.
Yeah,
communication.
for sure.
Themes that will always be on this pod because they're relevant in so many areas. I mean, and listeners, watchers, tell us what you think about this 3-pronged approach, this usefulness, the sex, the respect. Are those really the 3? I mean, let us know. Comment, email us. I mean, was this guy an idiot or was he on to something? We want to hear from you. You know, and on that note, we want to thank y'all for joining us for this episode. This is actually, I believe, episode 10 of the Are We Clear Yet podcast. If I'm wrong about it, just forgive me, but I think I'm right. We want to thank y'all for hanging with us these 10 episodes of the show. And also, if it hasn't been realized yet, I met Deborah Cox. Please join us next time on the show. Like us, subscribe, share, and we'll catch you next time.
How did we get here?
Later.